Trying to find a spot. I don't know if those are all like secure or not, but welcome and thank you for tuning to Neptune Knives. So if you're following our video series on frame locks and some of the design flaws, you'll know that I had shown in that video the Sebenza and Umnumzan FAIL. And that's caused a lot of feedback and stir, and people have comment that perhaps I have ulterior motives, and I've used the knife prior to it. And the thing is, I'm not going to buy a $375 Sebenza and then purposely abuse it to then film me showing it not work, so that therefore I can't carry one of the most popular brands out there that could make me a lot of money. Like that doesn't they were trying to say like, oh well, I promote Striders and I promote like whatever Cold Steels and Spydercos, the ones I carry, I say are good, but like I have no other response to that other than, well, duh. I mean, if it's good, of course I want to carry. If it's bad, I don't feel right to sell a knife that I think is bad. And I feel that it's proper that I know something about the knife, so that when someone does want to buy it, I can provide some feedback about it, and even have a review to show about it, and let people know before they get stuck with a knife that may not be right for them. So for example, like my Sebenza failing, I was fine with it. I don't mind. All locks can fail. You can break a knife. I mean, you can make a lock unlock. But the thing was, on those, it was actually really easy. I mean, being able to use my hand, which I'll show you soon, is not really that uncommon, and then being able to spine whack it. Some people, they were like, well, why would you ever spine whack it? Whoever does that? And then, I wonder, well, do they ever then ask Cold Steel, why does Cold Steel spine whack their knives and all the tests? And okay, so you could say, well, okay, Cold Steel has like a little a $30 knife that when you whack it and hang 200 pounds away from it, it doesn't fail. So then you go and spend a $400 knife, yeah, maybe that's not necessary to have that function, but it kind of like makes you feel like, dang, why doesn't your $400 knife have the function, the ability that a $330 knife can do? But I didn't mind. I told Mr. Reeve, hey, why do I need to send it back? I don't gotta send it back, and I'm cool with it. But he said that's not a safe knife, and he needs to, check maybe his employees are slacking. And I was like, okay, I understand that. So, whatever. I mailed it back to him, and he told me he'd call me Monday, and he didn't. So then I called him, and he said he got it in at lunchtime. He hadn't had a chance to look at it, and then he said he'd call me Tuesday, and now it's Friday. And the thing is, he was saying to me, like, well, he asked me, why does a lock have to be that tough? Like, why am I themed around these, locks not disengaging? And I told him, well, it's not so much that the lock disengages. It's just that, like, knowing that kind of lock would disengage, I just feel like knives should have, like, safeties, especially if they're folding knives. And he was saying that, oh, he considered choils, but it's just he prefers that straight section of the blade because he wants that cutting performance, that ability to cut. He said shave or something. And he mentioned that he incorporates some of the points that I made in my video. Yeah, after that, I've been taking, obviously I did a long series about frame locks, and I thought I'd follow it up with a video showing how some of the different designs, methods to make a frame lock, a Reeve integral lock, tend to wear over time and still possibly have issues, and what issues to expect. And regardless, and that kind of leads to the website, and I kind of wanted to show something. So like before, if you had been following me since the beginning, you know, originally there was a Chris Reeve knife link, and it linked to the Zan, the True North knife Tonto one, because I had that knife and I thought it was pretty cool. And on that link it said go to True North Knives because it's an exclusive to Neil over there at True North Knives, and to get it because I thought it was an awesome folder. But you know, I'm going to make as I learn more about knives and stuff, I'm going to come across things that then I realize, wait a second, I can't suggest that. And if you could see, like right now, I don't have Chris Reeve here anymore, because he had said, why you even got to say that? Why if it's not any good to me, why even post that? So okay, fine. So I understand. So okay, fine. I removed it, but then the question is now like, well, how do I show then people that perhaps that's a knife that I've encountered that isn't good? Because what if someone comes to my website and they think, okay, well these are some brands, or why doesn't he sell Chris Reeve? And they go buy Chris Reeve, but then they don't realize it's because I've tried Chris Reeve knives and they can fail that way, And perhaps that person might be thinking that they can, use that knife and it withstand force, dynamic force, and they just can't. So I even asked Mr. Reeve, I was like, well, what about that tie lock? That new one he has, and I was like, I thought maybe I could get one of those and test one of those, and he said that lock he posts on his site isn't a strong lock. It was just an interesting locking mechanism. It wasn't something that wouldn't be up my alley, But you see, I try to do that. Like at the Fox Military, originally I had combative edge and stuff, and I'm gonna follow up the M1 and stuff. And now, and what happens before, I said knives that we don't recommend. Now it's that now I've tried to be, trying to be nice about it. I said knives that we've considered, and here's the M1 and the SR11 that I talked about. I mean, and also like for example, you saw in the intro there was a bunch of that was a box of Boblum Tontos. And I bought a whole box, and I've had customers say, hey, you seem to really like that Boblum Tonto, Dave. I was thinking about getting one, and I put it back here under knives we considered, and it's just, and that's what happens. You see, like, okay, the Boblum Tonto for me, the only issue I have was that, as you can see, it can handle heavier use, but over time the knife can get loose in terms of the handle construction of these liners. It just, the tensions aren't solid like a paramilitary. I'm still trying to figure out why. Perhaps because they're not they aren't shoulder. They're just, and they're small, and perhaps where it's positioned. Like on the Super Leaf, it's more of a four corners, while this one is kind of spread around an angle. But regardless, I put it here, and I have that box of inventory, but I have to still tell people, like, hey, it could be disengaged, it's only meant for right hand use, and I put this warning up here that this is something to consider. And a customer, he bought one, he was like, he already knows and he's fine with it, and okay, but this doesn't help. And I'm just trying to get the point across that, like, I'm feeling like for Neptune knives, we're looking for like multi-use safety, perhaps for family, for daughters, for wives, I want more ergonomics and stuff, And so that's why, like, you can see, like, it makes it hard then, because as I keep considering knives, I keep removing knives I've tested, and the selection gets slimmer, and I'm trying my best to find knives, and for example, I'll watch these YouTube videos, and under suggestion of other people, for example, I'll try like the Super Leaf now, which is a compression lock, and I'm going to give it a shot and maybe see if it can go on the website. But the Super Leaf, first thing I'll notice is that the compression doesn't go that far, and if you watch that Para 2 video, I think that's one of the determining things about if it disengages or not. If we test a knife and it's great, like that Enlan ELO1, then of course we want to like suggest or recommend it, and I want to be able to provide variety to people who have different budgets and stuff. And but regardless, I just hope that you guys understand that I'm trying to be honest here with my experience and Mel's experience as we test these things, and you can see. And so now here we are at this Terzuola Strider. Now, I had said in my favorite 3 tackle video that this is one of my favorite 3. But if you look here, right down here, I had added this. And this, I have to do it. I just, go look and read it. This lock can fail too. And I'm about to show that. And as knives keep improving, like that Sage 3 is just really rock solid. And so for me, that's now like, it's hard to compare the knives, Spyderco knives to it, But now let's look at that. So someone would say, well, maybe that's just a fluke. Maybe that's just that one knife you tested. And it really is not, because I mean, if Mr. Reeves, he has everything to spec. I mean, everyone, all of these, these knives, you can hear that they'll tell you it's off by like 0.35 millimeters or something, I mean, it's so precise. I mean, they're machined so precise that to say that you got a dud, it's not really true. It's just more the design. I mean, and so now let's say, like, for example, if it wasn't Sebenza, now let's say it's my favorite knife, okay? This was one of 25, I mean, you know, of basically customs that they made. And these are all knives. Now I'm going to show, these are frame locks that I've used and now over time have worn in, and I can show now some of these things that they have wrong. Or not wrong, it's just these limits. Well, this has lock rocks. Here, let's see. Can you see? So if I push it hard enough, I actually can disengage. Let's see. Can you see it? It went from there. You see it? And I can actually get to disengage with my hand pressure. So now, where does that lie then? You know, when I first saw it, it still contacts on a corner, like it, just like how on the Striders, you can see up there is where all the gunk, my graphite lubricant has, you know, that's where it primarily makes contact. So you think, you know, well, if it's pushing on that corner, it'll push the lock bar in, just like it does in the S&G and the militaries, and that design method I was telling you about, what they just did now to the DPX test. Because of that unique blade tang, of how this pushes right into that blade tang and it doesn't go anywhere anymore. Let's see if we can get this in light. You can see in that right there, okay? And the fact that there's a stabilizer disc. You know, this lock bar can't be pushed in, and so now that it's had a chance to worn in, it's now obvious that the only way it can, the bar will move under pressure is back out, and it can unlock. But you see, now here's the thing, like, okay, this type of frame lock, if we look at like that DARE acronym, in terms of durability, these methods, like Mr. Reeve's Sebenza, and this style where it, you know, it's a little bit more flush, you know, they last a long time, so they're durable. But they come with that type of failure, and that's my thing, you know. If this fails, it has a huge safety trail to catch my finger, if my hand's weighed back down on the handle. And it still has this top ramp, and it doesn't have a cutout like the Sebenza does. So it's designed in a way, especially this one, is designed in a way that you can grip this one as hard as you want. The lock bar doesn't push in or move around because of the stabilizer disc and that blade tang cutout. So, you know, the idea of you be assisting the lock, keeping it from basically moving out, that's something to consider now. Like, do I still like this knife? Yeah, I'm fine with that. You know, I understand that a frame lock has limits, and I know I said they're archaic, and I still say that they are. That, you know, this knife is very reliant on a person's own personal ability to hold the lock in place, which I had mentioned. You know, so you might say, well, you know, so is that just this one? Come on, you know. You have to realize at this point now, what I've been trying to convey in these videos is that, you know, frame locks, not only are they very kind of intricate, you know, things can go wrong pretty fast, they have limits, and it's just because of what it is. The two main issues I say, does it have lock rock or disengage under pressure, but it wears very well. So you're looking at how quickly they can wear out versus disengaging. And, you know, Strider's design, you pay for that design, you know, and I showed that video that even though it rattles, it doesn't unlock because, you know, it doesn't disengage. The method that Strider went on their S&Gs and SMFs was, we don't want to disengage, but it's not going to wear well. And it's the same way with perhaps these M1 combative edges, you know. It's just something to realize that when you have a small contact portion, you know, put far away from the pivot over here, and it pushes on this corner of a lock bar, you're going to wear out that corner because it's just a small part touching each other. And it always pushes the lock bar inwards, like that. And, you know, of course, that's just going to cause wear and tear on that lock bar surface, and you'll eventually end up with still movement, like on this M1. Let's see. Can you see it move? Okay. You know, which is just, but it moves to a point when they're done that way, like the S&G and like this, what I just said. They move to a point and they get stuck. You know, like my Strider S&G, you know. You can see it's out there, and then it moves to a point and then gets jammed. and kind of pinned. And so that's fine. So if you have a frame lock knife and it does have that rattle, that up and down play, you have to just realize that one probably won't disengage, but that's that kind of trade-off. You chose that style. The other option is to have it wear very well like a Sebenza or this Strider, but to have it possibly disengage if you don't hold it. And so I wanted to show, like, for example, even the Hinderer now. People say again, like, is he comparing to other ones? I got 3 right here. These are all generation 3s. You can see how this one locks up. This is used, this is our user, and this is new. For this one right here, fresh, new lockup, and this one used. And you can see, listen. See if you guys can hear that. Did you hear that? Got jammed. Because well, I'm going to make a statement here, and this is just a statement, but I think I know why Hinderer did the lock bar stabilizer, what made him come up with that. Hinderer's lock bar doesn't fail, and I will say this: Hinderer, his lock bar goes inward too, and it gets jammed. But you can see it gets jammed because on the back of the blade thing, you see where that gunk is, right? You see how it moves at a slant? That's me, of course, gripping it and pushing it inwards. And you can see the way the slant is that when it goes in, the lock bar goes down and into it. And then that's what, you can see the gap gone, you see? Because, that's how he made it, to where it pinched it, just like the other ones, but pinched it down and inwards. And then, of course, he probably figured that, dang, it keeps moving down, he needs a stabilizer disc to help with that. And so that's what can happen. So, I would definitely say now that I know this, Hinderers have the strongest frame locks. Definitely the best, at least I know of at the moment. A DPX test is going to have the same method that a Fox or SNG will have. Basically the new DPX test will be like this Strider SNG, and I'm looking forward to carrying that knife. But it's just a reality. Does this one do that? No, not yet. You can't squeeze it in. It doesn't have that problem. But will it? It's one of those things. Did Hinderer slouch on just this one? It's not realistic. The truth is, just as you use them, they wear out, and that's just what happens. Frame locks wear out, and then you have to choose. Do you want a frame lock that will pinch the lock bar, but then that means the lock has to move a certain direction. It's physics. It's just you got to give the lock bar a way to go, to move. And because if it isn't, eventually it'll move a certain direction. Something will move out of the way. And as for the Spyroco military, actually, if you look, let's see, on the back of the blade tang, you can see it meets. I don't know if the camera can get it. There is a darker spot right there that actually makes contact, because this one still does that method of where, like, a corner of this blade tang is touching the lock bar, and so the lock bar moves inward. And this one has not had any lock or any issues, and so Spyroco did a very good job on the military in terms of that. The only thing, just for me, I just don't like it because you have to flick it open, and it can disengage it because of that cutout, and then the choil is not so, if your hand is not all the way up, it doesn't really work. You have to be up here. There will be statements that I'll make in previous videos, and as new developments, occur, I'm going to let you guys know. I'm going to update on the website. I'm going to do a follow-up vid like this one. And if you guys want me to do separate updates, for example, Hinderer after long-term use, or the Terzuola Strider after long-term use, I can do that. Or if you don't mind watching it like this, if you guys like watching my videos, just let me know. And either way, I don't mind. If you watch that frame lock vid, it'll show the different methods that the Terzuola, the Hinderer, the military, the Fox knives, the Strider SNGs, and to the basic levels of those the Fantoni, which no one seemed to mind that the Fantoni failed, but just because it's not a popular knife. But how the Sebenza, those kind of like 2 or 3 different ways the lock bars can be made, frame locks. And here's an update of how those 3 have lasted or sustained themselves. For this military, perhaps one of the main reasons why I guess it hasn't had any up and down though is just because they did add that steel lock insert. So now it's a very solid surface that's slowly wearing. So that kind of like solves that problem. It kind of does what a SNG does or a fox knife does, but lasts better because of that steel insert. You know, for me, now it kind of makes me take a look more at just compression locks and liner locks. You know, it's like, dang, so much trouble for a frame lock. But I still like frame locks. I still like them because in terms of outdoor, I like the titanium, meaning no maintenance, because the liners have maintenance issues, and I like, you know, more the simplicity, you could say. And this is still one of my favorite 3 tactical knives. But I will say that this Hinderer definitely has shot up. That at least this, you know, the way he did this, you know, like there's pros and cons. There's just no such thing as perfect. And I hope to all those people who do like Sebenzas that they do realize that they need to exercise caution. And one last cautionary note is this: people keep saying like, oh, why would you need to? Why is cold steel test 200 pounds of weight hanging from a knife? Why do spine wax? It's because if you really knew, if you had followed, I had a spine wax the Sebenza from like, I'm not Sebenza, the Umnumzan, maybe only like a distance of like 8 inches. The force is whatever the strength of my arm is, times those 8 inches, times whatever the amount of time it took, and that was the ultimate power that was applied. And you'll soon realize that it doesn't take much force when force is moving to make a lock disengage, to multiply. The effect is very cumulative. It's very fast. I told you this before, that if power equals force times distance over time, okay, then 10 pounds over a distance of 2 feet, in 1 second becomes 20 pounds. But if it's now, half of that, if 10 pounds over a distance of 2 feet is done in half a second, it now became 40 pounds. I mean, look at how quickly that multiplied. So if you think about that, 30 pounds, let's say you swung your arm with your knife with 30 pounds of force, or you stabbed something with 30 pounds of force, and you did that at a distance of, for example, 3 feet, your arm moved 3 feet, that's 60. And you did it within a second, that's already 60 pounds of pressure on that blade tang, which, most of these, they'll say that they can fail around the 80 mark. And the last note is, like I showed in that Super Beast, the custom knife makers like Jim, he made his knives for that was a request by a SEAL team. He had added tungsten carbide. He carbonized the surface of the lock bar to make it more rigid, so that you would have that same lockup method that you might see on this Hinderer and on or on this SNG, but at the same time that rigidity to not wear out like on the military. So instead of a steel plate, he put that. And someone told me, actually Knife Lover was saying that he contacted Warren Thomas, and that Warren Thomas said that he could add carbide to the lock bar surface of his the SMF or SMGs and stuff if you add, I guess you requested it. I'm gonna look into that because maybe I want to get that done too. Just realize that frame locks, they have limitations, especially over time. You're looking at 2 aspects: wear or failure. And you pick and choose. Well, actually now I look at my bottom tanto is centered, and it doesn't have any play. So maybe I'll move it around. Maybe I'll move it back to recommended knives. I mean,